Hey there, welcome back to Jillian On Love. Today I have a guest that I would put money on the fact that most of you are going to be very excited about because you're going to know exactly who she is. I welcome Sheleana Aiyana to the show, who is a best-selling author of Becoming the One and founder of Rising Woman. That's it. It's Rising Woman on Instagram and has a growing community of more than 3 million readers. And she is so incredibly wise and comes from a very, very traumatic childhood. And she has transformed that in a way that is nothing short of remarkable. And the work that she has done in helping people to overcome specifically anxious attachment is absolutely incredible and spot on. And so I think you are going to enjoy this conversation between the two of us and get ready to take notes. So without further ado, Sheleana. Hi, Shay. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you. I'm just going to dive right in.
Yeah, let's
Should
go.
we just get right into it?
Do it.
How does, in your view, a person know, and I'm sure this is a question that you get asked a lot, how does one know that they are actually ready for a relationship? And obviously one that is actually healthy, because I think that one of the fears and ongoing conversations is, have I done enough inner work? Am I healed? Do I feel whole? And there's so much out there, like you have to feel whole, you have to feel complete to be in a relationship. So I would love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously the age-old question, and we get it all the time. And, there are times, there's a spectrum. There are times for sure where somebody isn't ready for a relationship, which I actually think is quite rare. But when they aren't ready for a relationship, it's if they're in an energy of desperation and panic. If you feel so ungrounded on your own, you feel so desperate to have somebody sort of numb or soothe that void or that loneliness or that discomfort that you have within you, then chances are the frequency that you will choose a partner from will not be good for you, because what we attract when we're in that vibration, when we're in that frequency, is generally at that same level. But for the most part, honestly, relationship is just hard. It's messy. It's not going to be perfect. And I think what's more important is understanding your own mind a little bit, having that ability to observe your mind, being aware of your nervous system, knowing what it actually feels like in your body when you are leaving your body or when you're really in your body, knowing what it feels like when it's yes, knowing what it feels like when it's no. And then just choosing somebody who is willing to be a co-creator with you. And a co-creator means somebody who understands that relationships take effort, who understands that inevitably your stuff is both going to come up to the surface, and who is willing to do that work with you. And not that it needs to be chaotic or you need to be processing all the time, because that's also not ideal in a relationship. But there are definitely seasons where you might be doing that a lot more. And so it's more important to me that a person is self-aware, has humility, is willing to take ownership for their stuff, and is willing to put in the work than whether or not, they're perfectly healed or whole. Because, let's be honest, nobody ever really gets there. We're not on a journey of perfection here. I've certainly never met anybody who has a perfect relationship. I don't have a perfect relationship.
No, no one does. There's no such thing as a perfect relationship, though I do believe that that ultimately that the signs of a good relationship are, number one, feeling like you can actually be yourself with someone. I think that that's incredibly important, where you don't have to pretend or hide, or you don't feel like you need to change. That's different than grow. But and that's different than changing, breaking certain habits or whatever, something like that. But more so change who you are. And if you both sort of agree on what a life well lived is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You don't have one person dying to live in nature and the other person says, I must be living in a city. These are the things. There's no perfect relationship, but you do speak often to the nervous system. And I know that you had a course about overcoming anxious attachment, and your approach to it is very much rooted in the nervous system. Can you talk a little bit about insecure attachment and the nervous system?
Yeah. So, attachment styles are really trendy on social media and on Instagram. And so I think people get this understanding that it's just a term or it's just sort of a catch-all. But really, when we look at attachment, and I've really gone deep, deep, deep into the study of attachment. First of all, secure attachment is formed by so much more than just our parents. Our parents actually only have about 30 to 40% of the responsibility for shaping attachment.
Ooh, and then this is exactly what people need to hear and what's not shared. So please say more.
Yeah. So, I think it's really typical. We look at the mother and the father, and then we think, okay, well, whatever happened there is going to determine the outcome. Now, of course, they do have a very large percentage of impact on that. And we also know that the more negative experiences tend to have a bigger effect too, unfortunately, than positive impacts on the brain.
Yes.
In terms of creating damage, right? But it's only about 30 to 40% that the parents have an impact. Then we're also looking at your socioeconomic status. We're looking at your environment. And then we're looking at also your community and the culture. So there's all of these other factors that shape secure attachment. Okay. Now, when we're looking at attachment, what we're actually looking at is how the nervous system wired in those early years. Now, the big piece around secure attachment with the parents starts in that 0 to 3. That's like the biggest impact, because the infant brain is forming millions of connections every single day in that first 3 years. It's the most rapid period of development. And the brain and the nervous system is essentially learning what's safe. Is it safe to be me? Is it safe to have expression? Is it safe to ask for my needs to be met? Will they get met? Right? And then we have these buckets where we have somebody with disorganized attachment likely grew up in an environment where there was a lot of anger, a lot of perhaps violence, a lot of hot and cold behavior, very confusing dynamics. Avoidant patterns generally form because there's just an inconsistent warmth. So there's this internal...
Would you say an inconsistent
warmth, meaning there is this baseline of not having needs met, and this baseline assumption that whatever I ask for or whatever I need, it's not going to be seen, it's not going to be understood. I'm just an island. I'm out here on my own. And then when we have this insecure, anxious attachment style, what happens is there's a hot and cold. There's a warmth that is sometimes available and sometimes not. Right. And so it's really tough at that point, because what happens is the nervous system just starts to pattern in these highs and lows. And so it starts to wire in this expectation that there's going to be some chaos. And this is the same for disorganized attachment. So, anxious attachment is an interesting one, because I would say the majority of the people that I work with are experiencing some form of anxious attachment. But actually, when we work deeper together, what we find is that most of them are also afraid of commitment. And so it's a lot of times there's some disorganized attachment that's sort of lurking. Or what we find is that there is a way of hiding in that anxious bubble, of choosing partners unconsciously, of course, who won't show up for us, or who are not committed, or who are emotionally unavailable, so that we don't have to be vulnerable. We don't have to show up. We don't have to be intimate. It's sort of a crutch. So we work a lot on that, and you can't mindset your way out of this stuff, right? Because this is nervous system trauma. These are patterns that are wired really deep in the nervous system pathways.
Okay, so there's a few things that I want to address or just like explore more with you. One is, I do think that there is an avoidant in every anxious person and an anxious person in every avoidant person. I think that I've always found that. But when you say that it's always a nervous system thing, for the way that my sort of view of it is the mind and the body are one, that there really is no separation. So your thoughts will determine the quality of your body will determine the quality of your thoughts. And when I say body, I really mean physiology, which includes your nervous system. So in addition to the nervous system work, have you found, because I have found also belief systems that are impacting the nervous system, and maybe the nervous system is impacting those beliefs, and it definitely becomes a chicken and an egg thing. But there is a sort of belief system, and when you peel away the onion, what I always find is someone who is deeply afraid that they are not good enough.
Yeah.
And they're not good enough because of, A, B, C, and D. And then there's a nervous system thing. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And then just one other thing that I'll throw in there. In Ayurveda, the belief or the science behind it is that we are all born with a proclivity in terms of our nervous system and our body composition that affects our mind composition.
Right.
Some people are born with a much more sensitive system. And I would say that their parents didn't shape their nervous system, but somehow I was a very sensitive nervous system that was born into a very unstable family dynamic.
Yeah.
And so that created a whole ripple effect.
Yeah. So have you ever read any of Greer Kirschenbaum's work? She's a neuroscience scientist.
Yes.
And so she specializes in nurture. So what you're talking about is the difference between what's called an orchid baby and a dandelion baby, right? And so
never heard of that.
The orchid babies, they're the highly sensitive babies. I have one myself, and you were one. And so what happens is we are born with a nervous system propensity toward, either highly sensitive or a little bit more rugged, where we can just kind of be put down to sleep and just left there and we just conk out, or we need to be held constantly, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Now, both children with the same, parents will have different outcomes.
Yes.
However, what they have found is that with orchid babies, through nurture, through secure attachment, through heightened attunement, those orchid babies have just as good of outcomes as the dandelion babies who have a more easygoing nervous system. And so this is where attachment really does matter. Because if you have an orchid baby and you decide that you're just not going to show up, you're just going to try to treat them like your dandelion baby, and they're screaming to be held, but you're like, well, my other babies were fine, I'm just going to put you down and let you cry it out. Chances are that orchid baby is going to end up developing either avoidant or anxious attachment, depending how much consistency or inconsistency there is in the warmth that is given to them. And so, this is where we play a role in how we nurture the nervous system in its development. And so, I'm even seeing this with my own daughter, because I have a highly sensitive kid, and it requires a lot of attunement, a lot of presence, a lot of care. And of course, all children require this, but the level in which it is required for somebody who is highly sensitive is more in the beginning.
Yeah.
And to speak to your point around the nervous system and the thoughts, yes, for sure, your thoughts do have an impact, but you have to remember, there is a percentage of the world that is securely attached, right? And that doesn't just magically happen. There are certain things that occur in those early developmental years that create the secure attachment. And so when we're working with an insecure attachment style, we can tell a person, oh, you are loved, you are whole. We can have them say affirmations. We can have them understand all of their patterns and sort of like map it all out and understand, this is why I do this and this is why I do that. But if the nervous system is wired to respond a certain way to certain stimulus, because we are sensing, feeling animals at the core, then we can't change that. So what I will see a lot is people who do a lot of mindset work, but then when they're in a relationship, their body's still getting triggered, or they're still reactive, or they still feel this need to pull away or to hide, or they're still in some impulsive reaction. And they understand themselves so deeply, and yet they can't seem to shift that piece until they address the nervous system. So it's really multi-layered. You have to have the nervous system piece, but you definitely don't want to not have any mindset work. It's just that you can't have that as the isolated cure, let's say, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. How does one work with their nervous system if they feel like they are in a moment where they're in, let's shelve attachment theory for a moment, and just their insecurity is triggered. Let's just say that. Yeah,
for sure. Well, I mean, it's sort of the same for everyone across the board. If you feel that there is an aspect of pulling away or wanting to run or not feeling like you can fully be yourself in any given moment,
or anxious that you're going to be abandoned or left, or having those nightmares that like the person just leaves you all of a sudden.
Right. Yeah. Which is, that's an extremely anxious pull to be having those kinds of thoughts.
Yeah.
So on a nervous system level, what I work with people in, and we have a lot of somatic experiencing practitioners who work in my company. And one of the things that we always do is we focus on first being aware of our body. Like, which sounds so simple, right? You're like, what? Everybody's aware of their body. Actually, most people aren't. How many people don't go pee when they have to go pee for like an hour, or they don't eat when they're hungry, or they don't take a drink. They don't even know they're thirsty.
Yes. Oh, wow.
Right?
Yes.
So we actually, in our culture, do not live in our bodies. We live in our heads. We love to pontificate. We love to talk about ideas. We love to think about things, but we don't actually feel. We don't express. There's a lot of people who can't get into their body enough to even just dance in a group. There's too much self-conscious energy going on. So if you really think about it, just being aware first of our sensations, which for some people can be triggering. When we sit in a group and we're like, okay, now we're going to tune in to what sensation is happening in your foot, what's happening in your legs, what's happening in this part of your body. That alone can bring people into their bodies more than they've been in years. Right? And just learning how to tune into and name the sensations happening in the body actually requires a lot of effort. And when you're hearing it, you're probably like, yeah, right, lady, that sounds ridiculous. But what I've seen countless times over, and I've, been in these deep professional trainings, and even therapists are like, wow, I'm having a hard time with this. It's difficult. We have to build that muscle of being in our bodies. And then there's another piece, which is creating a pause. And so let's say you're freaking out because you're dating somebody new and they didn't text you, and they said that they would text you. And so now you're staring at your phone and you're considering sending them a few messages, but you want to lean out and give them the space to come toward you. And so your reaction might be to either text them and be impulsive and then feel shame about that because you didn't honor your own boundaries. Or it could be to spiral and to just be, sitting in it, dwelling on it. Some people even get so extreme that they want to go to sleep, right? So they'll take some sort of sleep aid and they just want to sleep until they get the text. I talk to people.
Me too. Yeah.
So instead, what we could do is practice creating a pause between the stimulus and the reaction. So you feeling anxiety, you're feeling that stress. What would it be like to notice that for a moment? To just take a pause and be with your body, to notice where that sensation is located, to just hold it for a moment, to feel the capacity you have to be in your body and to feel what you're feeling, instead of, because all of these reactions, they're actually just, we're trying to escape from the sensation.
Yeah.
We're like, I can't handle this. I need to get out. I need somebody to save me. I need a text to come. I need to go and drink something. I need to eat something. Something else has to save me. So as you start to tune back into that sensation, creating that pause, maybe at first it's 5 seconds, right? And then you still go do the thing. But maybe next time it's 30 seconds. Maybe next time it's 5 minutes. Maybe next time it's half an hour, until you've slowly trained your nervous system to widen its capacity to hold intensity. And then eventually it's not overwhelming anymore, right? Because you know how to be with yourself. And so it's this slow, gradual process of widening that container.
This episode is sponsored by Nature's Sunshine. Sometimes my days, like, there's just so much cognitive overload, and sometimes I'm tired and I get a little bit of brain fog. Drinking coffee or drinking a bunch of caffeine actually doesn't help me focus, like, in the afternoon at all. It just makes me jittery and then I crash, and it's just not good. So I need something that keeps me very, very present and focused, and I found something. So Nature's Sunshine Brain Edge combines yerba mate with powerful nootropics to support focus, memory, and cognitive performance without the crash. I love yerba mate. It's like the only thing that actually keeps me focused without making me jittery. It's a clean plant-powered drink mix that you can enjoy hot or cold. Wild harvested yerba mate provides natural caffeine without all that jitters or crash. Nature's Sunshine is a trusted brand with over 50 years experience sourcing the most pure and potent ingredients from nature, and that's really important. Don't fight through feeling foggy and lethargic. Ignite your mental performance with Brain Edge. Nature's Sunshine is offering 20% off your first order plus free shipping. Go to naturesunshine.com and use code Jillian at checkout. That's code Jillian at naturesunshine.com. In my own experience, personal experience, and also in my experience of helping people who are deeply insecure and feel, get just very easily triggered in relationships, there's been a common theme and that I've seen throughout, which is that, you brought up something about socioeconomics and all of that, and that it's not just family. And I agree. I think there's so much context to it. And I think one of the contexts is, if you don't have meaning in your life, if you don't have something that gets you up in the morning, that feels inspiring in some way, not that it feels easy, but it feels like there's meaning and purpose. I do find that developing that part of oneself helps a person feel safer in their body. And more confident. And I think, because sometimes that insecurity and that extreme anxiety can be sort of traced back to a lack of belief in oneself, confidence in oneself. And when I think about helping them from a broader perspective of just really trying to make them feel like, in your words of your amazing book, becoming the one, like what that actually means to become the one, oftentimes I'll find that person needs more, there are other areas of their life that needs attention. And I'm curious.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You found that too.
I totally agree. And I mean, I think it's this aspect of we're growing ourselves up, right? We're maturing ourselves. And when we didn't have the proper supports, be it in our family system, our community, our peer support, whatever we were dealing with growing up, if we didn't have that, then there are these younger parts of us that perhaps we abandoned, or we neglected, or we just didn't attend to. And, there's this talk of the art wound too, of like all of those things that we used to do, the art that we used to make, or the music that we used to play, that we would abandon when we're young. Because we were told, well, you're just not good enough at it. And if you're not going to be, successful doing it as a career, then you should just leave it behind. I was talking to Elizabeth Gilbert about this on our interview recently. And it's this idea that everybody needs to have a purpose, and that purpose is to change the world. And it's like this big...
Everyone needs their creativity.
Everyone, exactly. And that's the thing, right? So when you really look back, I invite people always to look back at what it was that you were doing before you hit adolescence, like right before your sexuality came online? What were you listening to? What kind of activities did you enjoy? What were you curious about? You know, what did you love to do? What music did you like to play, or instruments that you were curious about? And would it be possible to move towards some of those things now and try them on again and see what comes alive in you if you were to just do it? Not because you need to be the best at it or because it needs to have a purpose, other than to just bring you joy.
Yeah.
And so I totally agree with you. And I think it's so important that everybody on this planet has creativity and activities that bring them joy, just because that's what it means to be human, you know, and sort of stepping out of that like capitalistic view of like it has to make us money or we have to do it for a job. Just do it because you love it. And when you have these things that bring you joy, you become more connected to yourself. You become more open to your intuition. You become more in tune with your senses. You become more open to guidance coming toward you, you know, from spirit or wherever. And in that, you naturally draw in people who are more aligned for you as well, because you are aligned with your soul's essence, right? And you know this very well. I'm sure this is very much the work that you're doing too. So yeah, whatever, you know, we encourage people to do, I would say, you know, finding the things that light them up is top 5.
Yes. And that's actually part of the quote unquote work. Everyone thinks that doing the work is only doing this really hard stuff that fixes yourself. And sometimes it's the work is so much more about unlearning than it is learning.
Oh my gosh. Well, we learn so much more through play anyways. We
100%.
feel more through play. So
100%.
Yeah.
I know a little bit about your story, but not fully. And can you share a little bit of it? Because it sounds like you had a really rough beginning. And I would love to hear about that and how you overcame it. And perhaps if you wanted to share how, if any of it still haunts you today and some of the things that you are working on personally.
Yeah. So, you know, I think a lot of people have heard my story, but I'll sort of summarize it for you. So I'll give you some of the highlights.
You'd be surprised. Maybe there's a lot of people here who haven't.
Yes, totally. I think, you know, when you tell your story a lot, you start to...
You get bored with telling it. I know. I totally get it. But just imagine there are definitely people listening to this right now who do not know it.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so I was born to a mother who had severe trauma, like the most severe trauma from childhood that you could have. She had severe mental illness. She was only 22 when she had me. We were ushered out the back door after birth. We were running from my father, who I have never met, who stalked me for 7 years. So I've never met my father. I was in and out of foster homes. By age 3, I was dropped off at my first foster home in the night. This is sort of like one of my first, you know, really core traumas, where my mom kind of packed me up and dropped me off at a foster home and drove away. She was struggling with alcoholism, you know, from my infant years into that period. So I was in and out of foster homes until I was 12, at which point I became what they call ward of the government. So they became my full-time guardian. So she lost custody of me. By age 14, I was addicted to crystal meth, you know, really heavy into drugs.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, I was really heavy into drugs. I had left foster homes for a while. I was sort of just like crashing on couches. And then by age 16, I had cleaned up my act and I had kind of gone back in and out of care. And then I left care completely and I moved out on my own and I homeschooled myself. And so by the time I was 19, I found myself in an extremely abusive relationship that I'm really lucky to have survived. It was a very dangerous relationship, very dangerous person. And there was a moment where I had locked myself in the bathroom, and I'll spare you the gruesome details, but I couldn't really recognize my own reflection. But I remember this moment where it felt as though the opening of my crown was just pouring out, and I experienced this vision, and it was me speaking on stage to women, and I heard, you know, this is part of your purpose. You're going to speak to women one day about this. You know, this is your training. And so I went on to... I left that relationship had a bunch of other traumatic experiences in relationship. And then I met somebody in my early 20s who was from another country. We ended up getting married. And when he left for another woman, which was, I think, around the same time that you were going through your divorce, when I like look at the timing, because I've watched
2014?
Yeah, it was, mine was in 2014, 2015 range.
So this is you got married. This is not the person who physically harmed you.
No, this is a different person. This is
a different person.
Later.
And he left you for another woman.
Yeah, left me for another woman, left me behind with all of his belongings. So I had a house full of his stuff. I had sponsored him into the country. So I was also on the hook for all of the bills. Couldn't sell our car that we mutually shared because I couldn't find the guy, At the same time, my beloved cat, my soul cat, disappeared. I gained like 30 pounds overnight. I got head to toe acne. I was broken out in rashes. My hormones crashed. Like I was triggered as deeply as you could be triggered. So my body just crashed. And I had this moment where he was driving away with her, and I just felt this panic wash over me. And I started seeing myself as 3, kicking and screaming for my mom as she drove away. And I realized in that moment, this is not about him. This is about you and your unfinished business from the past. And so that's when I went deep down the rabbit hole of doing mother-father work, doing transpersonal therapy, breath work, plant medicine ceremonies, you name it, everything. I was doing every healing modality you could do.
Did you have friends or siblings or any sort of support system beyond a professional?
I had friends. Yeah, I don't have any siblings. And so, yeah, I had my friends, thankfully. But when you're in it that deep, honestly, like every waking moment is torture. And so you can't,
I know.
You can't call your friends 24/7. I think I burned a few people out at that point because, I was really struggling to be with myself. And so I really did need to rely on professional support then, because it was a lot.
Yes.
It was a lot.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you've been there in your own way, right? So, but that was the starting point for me of really waking up to how suppressed all of my pain was, and how I had really never let myself feel the grief of my past. I had never let myself be truly vulnerable in relationship. I had never really allowed myself to be free, to be the tender, sensitive being that I was until that point. And so that was a real turning point for me.
This episode is sponsored by Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money's 5 million members have saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions. It's genius, with members saving up to $740 a year when they use all of the app's premium features. I love it because I am telling you right now, you have subscriptions that you don't know about, and you are throwing money down the drain. Think about all the streaming services alone, or places where you order food from. When you use Rocket Money, you'll see this, and it's insane. And then you get to save your money, which is incredible. Rocket Money will even try to negotiate lower bills for you. The app automatically scans your bills to find opportunities to save, and then goes to work to get you better deals. It's genius. They'll even talk to customer service, so you don't have to. That alone is worth it. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/onlove today. That's rocketmoney.com/onlove. rocketmoney.com/onlove. Wow. When did you meet your now husband?
I met him late 2015, almost in 2016, which is funny because I had been doing all of this work, and I had finally accepted that I was single, and I was like, now I'm ready, I'm going to be single for the next 3 years. I hadn't dated anyone, and I was like, I'm going to stay single. And I wrote out this dream of this vision of the partnership that I wanted to have, and how we were going to show up together, and yada yada. And then we met, and I really resisted it. I really did. For the first month there, I was like, nope, I'm supposed to be single for 3 years. This is not happening. And I really resisted it. And he had actually had a similar plan. He said he was going to be single till he was 35. But instead, what ended up happening was he got married when he was 35. And so, yeah, it was just one of those things where neither of us, we couldn't deny the connection. And so about after a month, we both finally surrendered to it. And we've been together for 10 years now.
You talk a lot about conscious partnership. How would you define what a conscious relationship is?
I mean, I think the determining factor is, are you both accountable for your minds? Are you both aware that you're co-creating this, or are you in blame? And do you believe somewhere deep down that you just have to find the right partner and that things will fall into place?
Yes.
Right? Because this is the delusion that we're sold, is that it's about finding the right partner and then things will be easy.
Yes.
And in a conscious relationship, you both understand that there is a purpose of spiritual development and that it's a vehicle for growth. And that when you come together with somebody, you're really saying yes to their baggage too. You're saying like, hey, whatever soul lessons you have to learn and love are now my soul lessons to learn and love, because I'm your teammate here. So it's really important that you decide, who you want to do that work with. You got to be motivated.
That's why you have to choose that's why who you choose actually matters.
It really does.
Deeply.
It really deeply does. And it matters even more if you want to have children, because it's like the stakes are just so high. But it's really about both of you, not just one of you, because you can't be their mother or their savior or their healer, right? That's not going to work. It needs to be both of you deciding to show up every day for the relationship as a garden, and a garden that you're both tending to, and that you know that you have to water it daily or it's going to die. And that's really the difference. It's really not that complex, but you have to be able to face your own demons and face your own shadows. And you have to be willing to have hard conversations together and to meet your edges. You have to be able to face winter together and know that not every season is easy and playful and fun. And that we do go through these cycles of harmony and disharmony in relationship. That's actually very normal.
Yes.
But it's having the skill to navigate those seasons together that really matters.
How important are the hard conversations?
I would say that there's nothing more important, right? Because that's what gets in the way. Like, resentment building is what kills relationships.
Absolutely.
If you don't talk about what's in the way, if you don't, my old spiritual teacher used to have this concept of revealing your mind, where if you have these shadow thoughts that are keeping you separate from your partner, you don't have to tell your partner every little thing you're thinking or, every little negative thought that you have. But if you're having thoughts or feelings that are keeping you separate from them, that are impacting the connection, you need to reveal to your partner. Yes. And so, my husband and I have these tantric containers, or these practices where we sit in front of each other and we do that. We tell each other what's going on in there. You have to do that. You have to clear the debris consistently in order to keep the airways clean between you. If you don't, it just creates stagnancy until you're so resentful, there's just no potential left, right?
Yeah.
So that is, again, it comes down to building our capacity to be with our sensations, to be with what's going to come up, not only when you have to share, but when your partner's sharing.
Yeah, and being able to listen.
Yeah. And can you
talk about nervous
really
system
listen?
Work, being able to hear what they're saying, even if it's deeply uncomfortable for you to hear it.
Yeah, because I work with men who are really afraid to tell the truth to their partners because their partner's reactions are so extreme.
Yes.
That, and so from the other side, it's like, oh, well, he's not being honest. And yes, it's his responsibility to bring the truth regardless. And also take a look at, how do you respond to him when he brings his truth or his feelings?
We train our partners all the time.
Yes. And so
if we're going to always meet their truth with a very strong reaction, you have to take responsibility for the fact that maybe you're training them to not speak.
Yeah. It's creating this dynamic where there is a consistent lack of presence and safety, either on one or both sides, which we see in partnerships all the time. And so that's where practicing, actually practicing when you're not triggered and you're not upset, just talking in a format can help. Set a timer for 3 minutes on each side and just tell each other what you're grateful for about each other. Yeah. Just start there.
Start there. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, well, that's very important because I think that oftentimes what happens in relationships is that we can get, and women, I think, do this a little bit more than men, but men do it too, which is, the focusing on what they're not doing right and
Yeah.
the focusing on what's missing. And if we lose sight of the appreciation that we have
Hmm.
for the other person, things are going to go south very, very quickly. And then when you take it just to the art of conversation, if you start with gratitude, if you start with appreciation, that's then, and then gracefully move on to, what's sort of missing or what you would like to see different, you're going to have a much better response than just going right into the complaint.
Yeah, my husband and I use this sentence stem. Something that I want more of from you is,
Okay.
something that I want more of from you is, and it kind of eliminates the complaint because you're not
Yeah.
even speaking to that. You're just speaking to what it is that you want from them.
Yes. And you
Uh,
want more of it. It's not
yeah.
that, yeah. This episode is sponsored by O Positive. O Positive is a women's health company. They offer a range of symptom targeting supplements that support women at every stage of her life, from her first period to well beyond her last. And they have a best-selling women's health products at Target and on Amazon. Euro, for example, is a probiotic blend specifically formulated to support vaginal health and is one of the top 5 supplements ever on Amazon. Because we know, ladies, many factors, sex, tight clothing, sweat from working out, hormones, periods, etc., just disrupts vaginal health. And we need help. When taken daily, 2 capsules a day, Euro delivers noticeable benefits within 8 weeks, and many see results sooner. So take proactive care of your health and head to opositive.com/JOL or enter JOL at checkout for 25% off your first purchase. That's opositiv.com/JOL for 25% off. Your relationship with your mom, how did you have to do a lot of work to release anger and frustration and move towards more of a compassionate lens? And how has it impacted how you're now a mother? Was there some anxiety that you felt in having a daughter and having been the daughter of someone who was ill-equipped to take care of you?
Yeah, I think most of my 20s I spent in anger and resentment toward my mother. Like I couldn't touch her. It felt electric.
Yeah.
I had very little patience for her. I would definitely hang up on her when she'd call. Like it was not a good dynamic.
Yeah.
And as I started to do that deeper inner work and have some pretty profound realizations, I separated her as mother from this mother archetype to just this woman on her journey who was really deeply struggling. And I was able to really see the gratitude and just the fact that, we had a life together because of each other, and that our souls chose this on some level. And I feel that now, without those experiences, without that tempering of my own spirit, that I wouldn't be here today with the work that I do. And so I was able to see the bigger picture, but it did take time. And we have, a relationship now where she's able to come and stay with
wow.
us and be in my daughter's life. And, we have boundaries, clear boundaries, but we have a relationship nonetheless.
That's
and my
very
husband,
impressive.
yeah. And well, my husband's really been helpful with that too. Like he's really great with her. And he has a wide window of tolerance and he takes care of things that I find stressful. And so, we just kind of work as a team in that. But to answer your question regarding me becoming a mother, definitely my dreams were weird. You'll probably hear this from lots of women. It's in that 3rd trimester, there's weird dreams. It's very shadow work-esque. There's a lot of stuff that's purging. So I had some wild mother dreams for sure. But, what was interesting for me was postpartum when I had my daughter, I was not triggered or grieving my own inner child But what I was surprised by was that I was often grieving my mother's inner child. It was like having this little tiny infant in my arms who was so helpless and vulnerable, and then imagine her being harmed. It was just gut-wrenching for me. And so I was really seeing my mother in everything that I was doing, which surprised me, because usually if someone's working through something, it's usually related to their own inner child. But I think I had really worked on that one so much that what was left for me was just deep heartache around the fact that my mother was so neglected and so abused. So that was really painful.
Well, that's a lot of compassion and empathy right there.
Yeah. Yeah. It was really hard, and it was really confronting, actually, because I just didn't expect it to be so overwhelming. But this is the thing, is you just never know what's in there until you get there. And so that's, again, coming back to, it's not even parenthood related relationship. It's like, well, how do I know I'm ready? Well, you can think you're ready. You can do all the work you want. Then you get into the relationship and it's like, surprise.
Yeah.
Here's this thing that you didn't know was lurking, waiting to be seen. So it's like, you just got to live, and you got to be present, and you have to be willing to face what comes, because this is the human journey. There's a lot to see and work through.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth? I just want to take a moment to honor your husband, because I find it very honorable and admirable that instead of what so many people do, which is, my mother-in-law is difficult, how do I get my wife to have better boundaries? Or my mother-in-law is difficult, how do I get my husband to have better boundaries? Mm-hmm. He is there to help sustain and foster a relationship that you have with your mom.
Yeah.
And I have found, and I would be curious to know your thoughts, and of course every scenario has its own nuance, but there's so much parent-child estrangement right now, and so much justification around it, and you went through something horrific with your mom, and these are people who did not go through anything like that. I'm sure there are some who went through even sexual abuse, but still. And also a lot of people who are so intolerant of their in-laws. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about what you have to say about that, because I was estranged from my father for many, many years. I talk about this in my book. And this is not to say, I'm very sensitive to the fact that there are some scenarios where your life depends on you not speaking to this parent.
Absolutely.
So I just want to put that out there to all the listeners, that I'm well aware of that.
Yeah.
And there are many, many more scenarios where you go right to estrangement and it doesn't actually solve anything. And so what would you have to say about the importance of doing the healing work to reconnect and to have, and I don't even want to say forgiveness, because I don't believe it's about forgiveness. I think it's about reframing it to the point where you understand that your mother did what she did only because of the tools that she had or did not have.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of us, we start out with this anger, this righteousness that I think is important to feel. But I don't feel that it should end there. I don't think it's useful to end with the anger and not come back around to allowing ourselves to feel our grief and our tenderness, and then eventually come to a place of compassion. I always talk about the difference between forgiveness and acceptance, and sometimes you can forgive and sometimes all you can do is accept, but you have to do one of each. You have to do one or the other, is what I mean. Because if you can't accept your reality, then you're going to keep reliving it in your body and in your mind. And that will find its way back to you in every relationship you ever have.
Yeah.
So it's beneficial for you to stop letting them live rent-free in your mind, right? And so you have to do whatever you have to do to move through to either forgiveness or acceptance, or maybe both, right? I feel that I've reached both. I personally, this is what helps me. This may resonate with some people. It may totally not resonate with others. I believe that my soul chose my mother and that we are on this journey together and that we had a contract to fill. And I don't feel that at this stage of my life, it's helpful for me to cut her off completely or to live in resentment toward the things that I didn't receive, because I accept that this is the path that I am on. And I see the ways in which it's tempered me. I see the ways in which it's supported me in deepening with myself and with my family. Now, everybody has their own views on this. I also think it's definitely more complex if there's like sexual abuse or anything like that. For me, that would be a very, very good reason to not be in contact.
Absolutely.
In my case, there wasn't that. There was deep neglect. There was deep betrayal. There was several experiences of abandonment. But I also was able to see her inner child and the fact that like what she went through is unspeakable. And so there's this piece of compassion for me. And so I think it can really be of service to all of us to remember that we, at the end of the day, are just all humans on our journey, and to see if there is an ounce of understanding or an ounce of innocence that we could assign to that parent.
Yes.
Where we could see.
That's a very good word.
And sometimes it's 1%, sometimes you can really get there. But to be able to just tune into their innocence at all and understand that, you know, they were hurting as well and that they didn't have the tools. And that ultimately, I know that there are definitely cases where your parent did not love you or they showed up really bad. I'm going to speak to the majority of parents who just really messed up, but they actually really do love their kids and they just don't know how to love.
Yes.
I would say that that is the majority. And
or they don't know how to parent.
They don't know how to parent. They don't know how to show up for emotions. They don't know how to validate. They're frozen in their own bodies. They're completely traumatized. They have no idea how to access.
They definitely love their children.
But they love their kids. And so cutting them off is like sort of saying, I don't see any potential in you to ever be able to shift, grow, change, develop, you know, and it's also cutting off your opportunity to do healing work with them in the future.
Yes.
I see a lot of people who, you know, even with my mom, it's like she comes over. I don't ever leave her alone with my daughter because she doesn't have the capacity for that. But they play in the living room and she's great with her and my daughter loves her. And she's this like, you know, kooky Grammy. And that's healing for both of them. And it's also healing for me. I never even had a grandparent, you know, so it's not perfect, but it's good enough. And I think it's okay to have good enough. Families aren't perfect. So yeah, you know, I think there is so many complexities that we could speak to, but ultimately it's really up to you to tune into whether or not you want to take on the hard work of being an advocate in your family. You know, my husband, he's sort of the leader in his family around conscious change and growth and communication. So when hard conversations aren't being had, he's the one who's like, hey, we actually should probably talk about this. And I know it's going to be uncomfortable, but we can do this and let's do it. You know, it's okay to be that person sometimes. You don't have to pour yourself out and martyr yourself, but it's okay to lean in a little bit. And it's okay to inconvenience ourselves for relationships. We're meant to be in community. We're meant to be in villages and in tribes. This hyper individualistic approach to relationship where it's just all about what we're getting and not about how we're meeting each other in hard moments, I think is something we need to work through as a collective.
This episode is sponsored by Live It Up. Live It Up Super Greens helps fill in nutritional gaps. I'm always looking for good greens powders. It is like actually one of my favorite ways to make sure that I'm getting my nutrients in. And this contains more than 20 superfoods from organic vegetables and natural ingredients, all traceable, all nutritionist designed, and all third-party tested. Just one scoop a day can promote gut health, support your immune system, and give you that just, I don't know, really good, solid energy that we need and that we can count on. And Live It Up has become a very quick and easy way for me to stay on top of my health. I really, really like it. It's a small habit, but it is a ripple effect. And 96% of people who take super greens daily say it's helped them increase their daily intake of vegetables and help them feel healthier. And that is why I take it. Live It Up is offering 15% off your first order, including subscriptions with code Jillian. Plus, shipping is always free. Head to letsliveitup.com/Jillian and use code Jillian for 15% off your first Super Greens order. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm wondering if you have time for one more question that I really want to ask. Yeah,
I do.
if you have a moment.
Yeah.
Does your abandonment fears come up in your relationship? And when it does, how do the two of you work through it?
Mm-hmm. Early in our relationship, I would say it did more. We had a more of an anxious avoidant dynamic going on in those first couple of years when we hit the power struggle. And it took us a long time to work through it. Probably took us 4 years of our relationship.
Being the avoidant?
Yeah, like anytime we would have conflict, he would literally just get so tired and feel like passing out. And I would be like, I'm the conscious one. Like, we're going to solve this right now. Like, we need to do the work.
I know, but that's also so male female. Let's so call it what it is.
It really is, for sure. Yeah. But the pattern of like the fatigue, like him like actually getting exhausted is like a nervous system trigger where like he's just like, I'm shutting down now.
Yeah, it's like I'm closing down for business. Yeah.
Yeah. So we worked through that over the years. And, you know, to be honest, like I don't have that come up now.
That's great.
The pattern that I do still work with, though, to this day is the runner. It's much more alive for me than anything else. Like I'm a survivor. Yeah, I'm a survivor. Yeah. You know, I got here on my own. That's the story. I got here on my own. I can do it all myself. I don't need anyone. I'm just going to leave because I don't have to put up with this shit. And so that's like my inner narrative anytime I get uncomfortable in relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. So, you know, my husband holds a lot of space for that BS. And, you know, we just deal with it. We're constantly working through things as they arise. And, you know, we were in a pretty even place before having a child. And now we're in this new phase of development, reorienting to this new triad. So there's all sorts of things that come up in that.
Yeah,
but, you know, I would say as a person who had a really tumultuous first 25 years, it would be safe to say that runner will always be with me, but she doesn't get to lead.
Yeah, she doesn't get to lead. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And she's cool. Cool, but she doesn't get to lead.
Yeah, exactly. She's welcome at the table. We can have dinner together.
Yeah, we can have dinner together. Exactly.
But she doesn't get to decide what's happening.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. What are you working on now? I mean, you have your book, Becoming the One. Please let everyone know where they can find you. And I think you're also coming out with a mastermind soon. So please, and we'll put everything in the show notes. But tell us. Yeah.
We'll drop my website. It's risingwoman.com, or my very complicated name, SheleanaAiyana.com, the least brandable name of ever time. I am coming out with a mastermind for the year to work with spiritual entrepreneurs, and I am writing another book. I have 2 kids' books publishing in the next 2 years. I'm just writing a lot, honestly. It's my thing. I'm loving that journey of writing. So yeah, but for this year, all that's coming out is the mastermind, and all of the books are coming out in the next 2 years.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for doing that very intense work so that you can help others and guide others. And you have a very calm energy about you. It's very relaxing to be around you, and that's so nice. And I just appreciate that we've been able to become friends and for you to be on the show. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Jillian. And, you know, same for you. I really appreciate the grounded, dynamic quality that you bring. And you're down to earth and you're real. And I love that. And
thank you.
It's rare, you know, in this culture that we have created, all of us together, especially on social media. So I just appreciate the way that you bring your work to the world, and I'm looking forward to collaborating more in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Jillian On Love is a QCODE production, executive produced by David Henning and Steve Wilson, produced and edited by Travis Howe, music by Will Tendy.